Hey, this is the World Advice Channel 2. What I want to talk about today is a topic of why every ideology is flawed. So, for this video, I'm going to discuss the topic of why every ideology is flawed, specifically the social ideologies out of the three main ideologies: political, religious, and social. What I'm going to be talking about today is why social ideologies are simply stupid and don't make any sense, specifically referring to the way they teach you how to see the world. Okay, as the truth is, putting out this information because I don't want individuals to follow them, as well as societies of people to follow them and get fucked over, because I want the best for people for the most part. And that's why I'm teaching you not to follow them, okay, because they're all flawed, and I'm going to explain to you why. So when it comes to the reason why every ideology is flawed, social ideologies at least, it encourages people to think in a regressive way. So that's exactly the reason why every social ideology is flawed. Because when you look at every ideology in the world that ever exists, okay, whether it could be Stoicism in ancient Greece, it could be obviously maybe Confucianism, Taoism, every single thing that has ever existed throughout the whole thousands of years of history the world has existed, every ideology, specifically social ideology that teaches you how to see the world pretty much for the most part, they all suck because they're all flawed, and they teach you to see the world in a way that actually at times can be very detrimental and harmful to individuals. Specifically, even though there's numerous reasons why, the biggest reason why is when it comes to the idea of progress. Because if you look at every ideology in the world, it always teaches you one specific thing, or one thing you always hear every ideology, specifically social ideology, teach you to think. It always teaches you to think, to not want more. Always be content with what you have. Always, want the bare minimum. Be content with little. Don't want too much and this and that, which is actually really stupid. And even some religions have that way of thinking too, as well. Specifically in this context, religious ideologies have that same way of thinking. It's always, you know, uh, do not want too much. Be okay with what you have, and this and that. Instead of teaching you to think in a way that actually makes sense, which is that you should always want more, and not just always want more, but always strive for more. Because the truth of the matter is, societies that have ever existed throughout human history that always saw it that way, I'm content with having this little, or this little, this much, always are the ones that get fucked over. And even though contrary to popular belief, specifically from the 21st century narrative, that they didn't really have the opportunity to advance, actually, and I have looked this up myself, not being PC here, I'm going to speak the truth. A lot of societies didn't want to actually progress. They didn't want to have more. They weren't interested in developing themselves, like technologically, economically, and even, of course, as well, aside from that, like in terms of materialistically, whatever, all the things that kind of help make a society grow bigger. They're content with things being the same exact way forever, such as Native Americans. A lot of Native Americans, not all, to be fair, not all Native Americans, but a lot of them did have that way of thinking. Some groups of people throughout many different hunter-gatherer cultures in South America, yes, even Europe, parts of Africa, not all of Africa, of course, but some parts of Africa, some groups had that way of thinking, to Asia, to Oceania, like, that consists of pretty much Polynesia and like Australia, New Zealand, all those places, like all that type of stuff. All of them had that way of thinking. A lot of those societies, not all, of course, but when I mean a lot of them had that way of thinking, specifically, I know Papua New Guinea had that way of thinking, and people who actually strive for wanting more, and not just strive for wanting more, but willing to have more, were mocked and ridiculed and treated terribly to be quite blunt and honest with you. They're treated like shit. A lot of individuals and people didn't really like them, and they would make fun of them and mock them and terrorize them. And look at what happened to those groups of people to this now. Look at how they're doing ever since Europeans came and took over their lands. And that's what I'm trying to say. So when you look at that way of thinking, that, oh, you shouldn't want more, be okay with having so much and not having this much and this and that and yada 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 yada. That's a very regressive way of thinking that encourages people to be taken advantage of, especially if you have a society, in other words, a group of people who are all brought up to think in that type of way. Even when you look at the history of Asia, which actually, when you look at it, specifically China, who should have actually been world leaders, one of the biggest reasons they never became world leaders, when they had all the knowledge and wisdom to pretty much to kind of go against Europe, is they had this whole way of thinking, which a lot of it was influenced by Buddhism, that you shouldn't want too much, that you shouldn't focus on other countries. Who cares about other countries and this and that? Focus on your own land and blah 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 blah. And it's like, you got to be fucking kidding me, and that's kind of the reasons why they got fucked over so badly, and they had a century of humiliation, which eventually led to communism, and they're still to this day not doing very good. So to put it bluntly, to answer your question, this is why you have to be careful what you hear people say, because the truth is every ideology in the world is flawed. Whether it comes down to the topic of wanting more, wanting to have people who strive for more, like being rich and stuff, which actually helps society progress, or teaches you to see the world in a way like never hold grudges, or try to always hold your emotions in, like stoicism, which just makes it more likely that when it comes out, it's going to come out even more violently. Or if it's not stoicism, it could be, a lot of the other ones that teach you to always forgive, don't hold grudges, and all that type of stuff, or always try to be calm and cool. All that way of thinking is dumb, because you have to realize sometimes in life, you can't look at the world one specific way all the time. Sometimes it is okay to be angry. It is okay to be perturbed. It is okay to hold grudges. It is okay to not forgive in certain cases. The only thing that comes down to it is how you do it. And that's really the honest truth. And a lot of cultures don't do it very intelligently, to be quite honest. Sorry, my bad. What I mean is that a lot of people don't do it very well because they're taught to think in these ways of thinking, which actually is very counterintuitive for an individual and a group of people's success. If they think in a way that actually teaches them to think in a certain way, whether it comes down to holding your emotions in, whether it comes down to forgiving, which sometimes just makes it easier for bad people, if not all the time, for them to realize, okay, we can fuck with this person because this person's not going to do anything back to me, which makes it more likely they're going to cause problems to a group of people, which is quite stupid. To just, even like I said before, the whole idea of always being content with what you have and not always wanting to want more, which is regressive and quite hypocritical, since all the societies that you notice tend to encourage people to think that way the most. The hunter-gatherer groups, like I mentioned before, yes, they had that way of thinking, but they didn't have an ideology for it. I was just using that as an example, of course, to show what happens when you don't focus on progression. But the societies that actually had ideologies do not want too much, be content with little, and blah 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 blah, tend to be developed societies anyway, which is kind of like, okay, so you're saying one thing and you're doing another thing, just like Buddhism, pretty much. They always say, oh, be content with little and don't want too much, but these Buddhists have these massive shrines and massive monuments, so it's like, what the hell do you even believe anyway? Like, it's like so stupid, like who are you? Like, what do you even really believe anyway? And that's exactly what I'm trying to get across here. So it brings up the question of, if you guys are doing one thing and doing another, should I even take you seriously? Whether it's some religions or even political ideologies for that matter, okay? So that's exactly what I'm trying to get at, or I should say, social ideologies. But anyway, you get the point, okay? The point of the matter is that's what I'm trying to get across here. So in short, to answer your question, do not follow any ideology, specifically social ideologies. All the way of thinking is toxic. Every single one of them is flawed. The best way you live life is to always keep a few things in mind. Have good emotional regulation, put situations in perspective. Some situations are forgivable, some situations are not, and always strive for success because being an individual, trying to have someone teach you how to see the world is in itself a very flawed way of thinking in the first place. Figure things out because people remember, as the saying goes, specifically if you heard about street smart, you don't know who's writing something, and everyone who writes something, you know, has an agenda. So don't. So in short, you don't have to follow any ideology, whether you're an individual or a group of people, because it's just going to waste your time. Just use common sense and you'll see success in the world. And that is all I have to say for this video. And I hope you learned something new. And simply put, I'm out. So bye.